the Heap Street family, thank you so much for being here tonight to celebrate Dave and who he is and who he was. For those who do not know me, my name is Kevin Winningham. I've known Dave for a lot of years. Our start was different in that I'm a referee, and so there you go. Where I'm going with that. And so just by me showing up at his games, whether at his field or away, and we began a friendship there. And Beth earlier and letting her know past week or so the incredible tight-knit Michigan soccer family we have here. And I think it's represented well. Tonight is kind of a who's who of soccer here in Michigan, and I know it's so great for the family to see all this. I also got to know Dave because he was the coach of one of my sons. And so team, I got to experience Dave and his impact on my own son for that part of that. Though I did not know Hebes as well as many of you know him, I do know this, that when we left the pitch, we picked up right where we left off. And I think that's how you were with Dave. There were paths crossed when you met. It just was right there, just where you left off. What I loved about Dave is when I went to referee his games, when our eyes would lock before that, it was also always a mutual respect. I was happy to see him, and for the most part, he was happy to see me. But no matter if it was before the game, during the game, or after the game, we had a mutual respect for each other that is lived through all of these years together. He and I shared a lot of electronic communication between September 28th and as I look back through November 19th. And I would just let him know that I'm praying for you, heard about you. And his response was always one of three ways. You're a wonderful man. You have a beautiful family. You're a precious person. Never ever forget that when I scroll back through his text. It's an amazing thing to know. Last act, a great coach, an incredible teacher, and a better person. So today we are here to celebrate the life of David Hebes Street. Would you bow your heads with me and let's begin in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much for the reason we gather together tonight, Father, as difficult as it is.
My penises.
We're here to celebrate one of your favorite kids.
My Santa Claus penises.
Much of the impact he had on literally thousands of people through education and through soccer. And Father, I know that legacy is going to live on. Father, sometimes we use the phrase, the man, the myth, the legend, in a way that doesn't impact. Father, truly for Dave, he is the man.
Oh, because I got one package that's in loop, and it's just.
We thank you, Lord, for the time we have.
Waiting for Terry or something.
Father, we know that life is going to live on for other people because of his holding of dreams.
I reached out to one of them because I hadn't gotten it or whatever, and they're like, they sent me all the tracking information and whatever, and they're like, it just shows that it's in transit.
Former students, former athletes.
It was like the next day after I reached out to them, and then they sent me everything. It showed up.
Shannon, mute yourself.
Again, I kind of went back and read it, and man, the impact is just
funny.
The brief time I have with you, I just want to
the atmosphere.
Read some excerpts.
Sometimes
Shannon.
I'm a pastor, and I know for some people oxymoron to be a pastor and be a referee, but I am. So I want to begin by reading out of the Bible, and I want to read the scripture that I think is probably familiar to most of you.
Celebrate my life for my friend.
And it reads this
Shannon,
way.
check the messages.
Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Now here's the verse that you've probably heard before, but it might not have impacted you the way that it has over these past few weeks. Verse 4 says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. The Bible says, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. And that song that David wrote as a little shepherd boy on a hillside says this: surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And I think that's a hope we have to hang on for Dave right now. A few chapters later in Psalm chapter 34, David pens these words. He says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, those who are crushed in spirit. And may I say on behalf of all of us, we are all brokenhearted right now. We are crushed in spirit, but God is there for us during this very, very difficult time. Secondly, I want to read from a book, and Dave and I talked a lot. I'm a former educator. I was a classroom teacher, went into administration to become an ADAP, and Dave and I had a love for books. And so there's a book that I began to read just recently called The Road to Character. Anybody ever seen this book before, The Road to Character? So it's a newer book by a New York Times bestselling author named David Brooks. And as I read the book, this was probably back in late September, I didn't think how it was going to impact me over these past few weeks. But here's how he begins this book in his introduction. Recently, I have been thinking about the difference between the resume virtues and the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the ones you list on your resume, the skills that bring you to the job market and that contribute to external success. These are the things that help us achieve wealth and fame and status. The eulogy virtues are deeper. They are the virtues that get talked about at your funeral, the ones that exist at the core of your being. Whether you're a kind person, a brave person, an honest person, a faithful person, the kind of relationships that you formed. Most of us would say that the eulogy virtues are more important than the resume virtues. But I must confess to you that for long stretches of my life, I spent more time thinking about the resume virtues than the eulogy virtues. Our education system is certainly oriented around the resume virtues more than the eulogy virtues. So are public conversations. Most of us have clearer strategies for how to achieve career success than we do for how to develop a profound character. Profound words to consider as we gather today around an amazing man who personified these views. I'm here to tell you today that Hebes had an incredible resume virtue, didn't he? But he had an even greater eulogy virtue because of the man that he was. When you walked in earlier, you saw a sign over here at the doorway, and it states the year of his birth, and it states the year of his death. And in between those 2 years is this hyphen. It's also called a dash. I want to read something to you that I will hope you will consider as we go through this holiday season, as you reflect back over memories you have of Dave, as you think about the lives of those he's touched. And it's simply called the dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on his tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of his birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was that dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that he spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there some things that you'd like to change? For we never know how much time is left. You see, we could be at dash mid-range. If we could just slow down long enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way that other people feel. And be less quick to anger and show appreciation more. And love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash, it might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, will you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Dave Heapstreet lived his dash to the full. To the full. As a soccer coach who has had the privilege to coach the collegiate level, the high school level, the middle school level, the club level, I'm always mindful of the things we're teaching our kids outside those white lines. And Hebes and I had a conversation about this one time as he was coaching my son. And we talked about the things that we're teaching these kids, characteristics like commitment and dedication and hard work and fun and teamwork, communication, critical thinking, conflict resolution, persistence, learning how to celebrate the victories with class, learning how to deal with defeat graciously, the importance of sportsmanship and gamesmanship, and especially having a love for this beautiful game. Those are the things that Dave invested in people outside the classroom. The things that he invested inside the classroom, we truly will never know, because he invested more than just academia. He invested those relationships. He invested those eulogy virtues into other people's lives. If Dave could speak to us right now, one of the things that I think he would say is this: hey guys, I'm still in the game. I'm just playing on a different field today. That's what he would tell us today. I also want you to know that this is not goodbye, Hebes. This is simply see you later, Hebes. Not a goodbye. If you need some help processing this, I want you to know, Michigan soccer community, I'm here for you. I'm a pastor of a little church in downtown Plymouth. If you go on Facebook, just look for Winningham as a yellow soccer ball. I'd love to be there for you. Because I know, as I talked to some of you earlier, you're struggling with this, as we all are. But don't grieve alone. Let's grieve together as a soccer community for a life that was well lived. Father, we thank you so much for Mr. David Heapstreet. We thank you, Lord, for the impact he made on this world. Father, I thank you once again for this family allowing us to take part in today, to celebrate with them, to remember this incredible man. Father, I thank you so much for the impact he's left. I thank you for the difference he's left. And may we carry that torch on for him in the days and the years to come. In your name I pray. Amen. A couple things for you. First of all, on your tables, if you're at a table, there's a couple of mementos there. The family would love for you to take those with you. Don't let this be like a wedding where favors are left behind. Take these with you. They're very meaningful. There's some very purposeful, intentional information on there. They would love you to take that with. So at this time, a number of people are going to come and share some memories. I'm going to begin by reading one on behalf of one of his very good friends, also a friend of mine who I have high respect for, and that's Mr. Nate Stoll. This is what Nate writes. David Heapstreet spent the entire life opening doors for others. He spent 31 and a half years at Livonia Churchill High School, shaping and molding lives, as he would often say. He wanted to see his students succeed, and he would often talk about their accomplishments. If you gave him a card, a drawing, a letter, he kept it. He routinely wrote letters of recommendations, helped students with college entrance papers, took on the role of the yearbook, and coached soccer and bowling. Yes, Hebes has a passion for bowling. He also had a passion for reading books, which he passed on to his students. On the soccer field, David paved the way for the growth of the semi-pro soccer. He was a founding member of the Premier League of America, where he helped build this league to consist of teams from multiple states. Most of these clubs are still operating today. Every summer, he brought in players from all over the world and provided them a positive soccer environment. He fostered these players over the summer, helping them reach their full potential. Numerous players reached out to offer their condolences. All shared the same sentiments. They couldn't have asked for a better summer club team and a better team experience. They also felt like playing for Hebes meant you're now part of this family. I first met Hebes in 1991 at Schoolcraft College. He was older than me and a really good soccer player. He was someone I could look up to. From that moment on, it seemed like we were connected and playing and coaching for the next 30 years. We never missed an opportunity to take a jab at each other. He would often introduce me as the guy from Kansas or that Kansas kid. We traveled across the United States together. We really loved the UP and spent countless weekends camping and exploring the shores of Lake Superior and Lake Michigan. The more remote we could be, the better. These adventures would often take us 40 minutes away from the nearest resupply. While camping, two things were for sure if we had neighbors. Hebes made sure we were best friends with them and no one would have a bigger campfire than us. Our campfires provided times when we would talk and listen to music for hours. Our go-to camping activity was playing many games of cornhole. Sometimes we would set up boards on the beach and we would have a round-robin tournament till the sun went down. I have to admit, if we played 20 games, Hebes would beat me 15 times, but I still enjoy playing. Of course, no camping trip would be complete without Hebes taking a polar plunge into Lake Superior, no matter the time of the year. There were many firsts on these camping trips. Hebes finally stayed up past 11 o'clock and enjoyed the northern lights. We went to Little Perch Lake in the UP where Hebes created a fishing pole, casted a fishing pole for the very first time. The four of us climbed Eagle River Waterfall and we hiked the North Country Trail, exploring bluffs and rocky cliffs along Lake Superior. After Hebes passed, I remembered he told me that he was making me my own set of cornhole boards. I found these boards in his garage. The boards are built and ready to be stained. I'll put them to good practice so I can dominate Dermot and Danny on our next camping trip. Of course, we will be one person short, and our four-man cornhole tournament will now be 3. We will find the enjoyment of being together and appreciative of the good memories that we created. I think he's modeled a good way to live life. He lived life to the fullest. He was adventurous and saw the world. He also spent his time opening doors for others, and he was genuinely excited for others to succeed. I remember your famous saying when someone would say, "Dave, how are you?" He would always answer, "I'm happy." I too will try to be happy. I'll keep on exploring for both of us. I love you, brother. Rest easy. Nate, thank you so much for those incredible words. Yeah, give my hand. At this time, Carrie's going to come share, and then she'll introduce the next speaker as they come.
Everybody look around. There are a lot of people here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Carrie, high school friend, lots of things. I forgot the tissues. Dave has many people who love him. Thank you, Beth, and everyone for the honor of speaking today on his behalf. I'm really grateful for the past, I've known Dave for over 30 years, but I'm really grateful for the past few years where he and I have grown very close and was a very good friend to me during a very difficult time. He'll call me every day. I consider him family. I hope I do him justice. I would have him edit this and read over it. I know that Dave wouldn't want us to be sad, but grief has a mind of its own. Grief is unrequited love, abandonment of the future you had planned, and moments missed. It feels heavy. Desperate to remember his presence, the dimples in his smile, the sound of his laugh. No words can soothe it, but at least we can do it together here tonight. I think the strength of our grief is reflective of how strong of a bond we had with him. Dave lived and loved hard. He knew who he was way before any of us did. He drove a lot of people nuts for it, but he always followed his passions. Music, books, writing, soccer, travel, the boat, his friends, women. That was supposed to be funny. I was one of them. When he wanted to do something, he did it. All right, I forgot my my reading glasses. It's fine, it's good. And he was always game for an adventure. I'm sure many people in this room have taken a road trip with him. I went all the way to California with him once. And if you weren't up for it, he would just go by himself. He broke a lot of hearts. Some in this room, but never out of malice. He was just easy, gotta love. As a doctor, the chances of him surviving one of these events that he's had over this past year and 20 years ago, and to my count, he survived 4 of them. And I don't remember him ever complaining or being angry about it. Not once. He always was grateful for every day. I had to quote some poets in this because of Dave. Mark Twain said that the fear of death, really can't see anything, follows from a fear of life. Yeah, give me the mini pluses, I can't see. Sorry. The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time. I don't think that Dave feared death. Didn't waste his time on fear or regret. He would remind us all that he had an extra 20 years with his borrowed heart. And as many of you know, he celebrated that day of his transplant as his new birthday. He called me on it every year. Maybe he got a peek of something we didn't that drove his hunger for life. Honestly, though, I feel like he was already living that way when we were teenagers. In life, there are participants and observers. And as we all know, Dave was a participant. He had physical wisdom. When he thought of you, he told you.
This call will be recorded.
Some of us didn't understand how he maintained so many friendships, but he did. Yesterday at Churchill, many of us said, oh, he texted me the day before he died, and it was remarkable how many people that was. He listened, and when needed, he was quiet. He was thoughtful and kind. He left you better, and he leaves us all better. One of my proudest moments of him was visiting his class at Churchill a few years ago and seeing him in his consummate role as a teacher and a mentor. His students adored him, and I know he inspired them to be themselves and to express their uniqueness through writing. These were his proudest moments. I remember him recently calling me to share and read a letter that one of his former students telling him of his impact on their lives. Not sure if that person's here potentially. And it filled him up. It wasn't just his students and players he inspired, but everyone that knew him, including me. I think that if he could tell us, he would tell us not to mourn, but to celebrate. He would tell us to travel to our dream spots, to listen to more music, to tell your people you love them while they're still alive and all the time. He would want us to go on the trips we had planned to go with him He would want his friends to be friends. And he would want us to laugh. Ralph Waldo Emerson, yes, I actually busted out some Emerson for him. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, and to have it make some difference that you lived and lived well. He would tell us to live and love hard. Wherever you are, friend, I love you. Next man doesn't need an introduction. Yeah.
This call is no longer being recorded.
Anything familiar?
Hey there, my name's Dan. I'm not a good public speaker like these last two, so just bear with me. I've known Hebes for more than 40 years. We met in 7th grade. And if you knew him back then, he had the spiky mullet. You might not remember how he got it, but he would drive around with wet hair and gel in his hair on his spree to get over those 40 plus years, I mean, all I kept thinking of, I wasn't even gonna speak tonight because I suck at it, is just countless, like the countless trips we took. One time him waking me up in the morning going, "We're going to Alabama." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, pack your stuff. We're gonna go get gas. We'll come back and get you." I'm like, "I have $40 in my name right now." He's like, "Don't worry about it." And we did for like a week, and we made do. Did some things illegal to make do, but we get there. All the trips up north, countless trips, countless road trips. Very spontaneous, always. The countless concerts we went to. Our first concert, we went to the same first concert. It was Huey Lewis on the News. God knows, I don't even know what year, 85 maybe. To when we were like 16, sleeping out for tickets for U2 Joshua Tree. And I think the last concert was probably The Replacement. Right there, Terry. That was a couple years ago, because then Dave started getting into indie music, and I was like, the countless nights of literally like laughing, crying, like just can't catch your breath crying. Whether it was, you know, just at the house or up north around a campfire like Nate's saying. We had a house in Northville, and there was just many nights there of the same things. We always had good intentions though. We think about going for like long runs because we live by Hines, or, you know, run around the racetrack and come back. We're like, yeah. And we never made it past Cool's Tavern. We would run and be like, let's just stop for one, then we'll just carry on. Never made it. And then we'd walk back later on. And then we moved from there to that, the house in Livonia, Nola. Raise your hand if you're ever at that house. It's a lot of funny times there. Anyways, Dave always made, countless times, he's talked his way into situations that benefited us. You know, whether it's getting into a place that we shouldn't be into. And the same thing is countless times of getting us into trouble. There was more than one high speed chase. He made friendships though, like Karen was saying, with like everybody. And it was amazing. He remembered everyone's name. Everyone. I was always going back to him like, "Hey, you remember so-and-so from Churchill?" And he would like rattle off their whole resume. He had an awesome relationship with my parents who passed away, but especially my mom. She passed away about 14 years ago. They shared a birthday. And he used to always check in on her, like when I was deployed. And I'll never forget that. Man, I was doing so good. Um, But like Kevin and Carrie both and Nate both said, I can't think of the thousands of lives he's impacted, the players, the students, the people. And if you ever went anywhere with him, a lot of times it sucked because it was like, can we just go somewhere without you stopping and talk to somebody? And it was never the case. We used to do this Sunday movie night thing. We call it Cinema Sunday. And we'd always go see like really shitty movies. And then we'd go around and tell people that they were the best movies ever, just to see if we could ever go see it. But one night he didn't show up. He was supposed to pick me up for this movie. And I'm like, oh, he's blowing me off for something, whatever the case is. And he was. And he blew me off because he had an aneurysm. And Beth called me the next morning. And I don't know if you ever heard this, but we had a heart transplant. Sorry. That was years after. Allegedly. Anyways, I put this all together last second because I'm like, there's no way I can speak. So I'm glad I did. But I was doing it as people were walking in, so I didn't really have an ending. So I'll just do a cheers to Hebes if you have a glass. To Hebes. Cheers. Next up, we have friends.
So my name's Brent. I help run the Black Swamp Brigade, which is how David and I met. It's a supporters group for the Toledo team that he is head coach of, and then now currently that he has started. Dave Eve Street was a champion of local soccer. In 2016, he was appointed to be the head coach of a new semi-professional team called Toledo United. Shortly thereafter, there was a meet and greet with the team, which is where we first met and interacted. And even from that moment, he started encouraging. He said nothing but positive things. I was 18 at the time and extremely optimistic about what we could build together. We initially talked about what the season would look like, the format, the skill level, the stadium, everything that goes into it. And then from there, we ended up talking about what makes a club special, which we agreed was not only the support offered by the fans and community, but also the support commitment from the front office and players and the coach to give it their all and give back to the community that they're serving, to make something we can all be proud of. We were in agreement that that's what we wanted to create. We wanted to create something special and do it right. And we ended up succeeding. That season was spectacular. United was the team to beat. We made the playoffs. We swept the very feisty, notorious RWB Adria for the first time. The last team to do that was in 2009. And all of that was due to him. I don't know how he had all the energy in the world. I mean, he was driving to Toledo, still living in Livonia at the time. But he ended up motivating everyone he interacted with. From the moment I met him to a very scrappy draw with Carpathia, where he got a red card and was sent off, which was definitely a moment. But he, of course, only did that, got a red card because he was advocating for the people he cared about and pushing everyone to be better. He never stopped being one of the Black Swamp Brigade's biggest advocates. And more importantly, he never stopped being one of my biggest advocates. He took me under his wing, both on and off the pitch, and always assured me that whatever I needed, no matter what it was, he was here for me and that he believed in me. That year, we ended up, like I said, making playoffs. Toledo was the host. A few nights before the match, with the help of my mom, we decided to make some banners to fly. And one of those banners was "In Hebes We Trust." We painted that. And we have not stopped, we've not strayed from that sentiment. He was a brilliant teacher, a brilliant coach, and a brilliant friend. The next year, he and Beth helped start a new club in Toledo called Toledo Villa after United folded, and continued his work. Still believing in us and our community. Without Hebes, Toledo wouldn't have a club to call their own. And all the friendships and relationships that have flourished, the playoff runs, the away trips, and the growth we've had since wouldn't be possible or have happened without him and his love, the warmth of his encouragement. In the years since, Hebes and I have kept in touch, talking about our shared love of the Portland Timbers, the path of American soccer, how much he hated that I'm a Liverpool fan, the occasional Detroit City FC match, and how my family, whom he loves endlessly, has been doing. And also checking on me every now and then. Hebes was an amazing motivator, inspired so many people to pursue their dreams head on and not look back. He started as a head coach for a team that I just wanted to support, and he ended up as a dear friend. I love him very much. Miss him immensely. We have a phrase that spawns from a chant in the Black Swan Brigade. We salute. And we've said it and sang it to David many times for many reasons in different cities and states, and the good and the bad of circumstances. So today, every day since we've crossed paths, and the rest of the day is that we are all here. I salute him. He'll be missed. I love him very much. And that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm in the Danny camp of not a great speaker, so hopefully I get through this. My name is Mike Birchbeck. Much of you met Dave much earlier in life. I had the pleasure of meeting him a few years ago. He became yearbook advisor, yearbook representative for 22 years. He took over yearbook about 3 years ago and worked with hundreds of teachers. Never hit it off with anyone like Dave. No offense, Andrew. Dave took over yearbook from Andrew. And we just hit it off, and one day I just asked him if he liked sailing, because it's one of my passions. And he said yes. He had done the Mackinac years before, didn't really remember much about it, but so we bonded over that, and ended up buying a sailboat together. And he had big plans to take the boat down to the Bahamas next year in retirement, and I was going to live vicariously through him. It was it was worth it. I was going to go visit him, but I can't do that yet in my life. But it's one of my goals. And even Nate just told me the other day, he was reading a journal from Dave in 1993. Did he say? Dave wrote in his journal, one of his goals was to buy a boat and sail to Africa. Which, if anyone knows anything about sailing, like, nothing against Africa, but no one really plans to sail there. It's like you sail by Africa or through Africa or whatever it is. It's just not much of a sailing destination where people go. So Dave had a passion in sailing. I guess I just rekindle it. Backing up real quick, a couple just notes. If you see this, in Hebes We Trust swag, they're gonna have a store open through the weekend. There's a QR code, at least on the bar and stuff. If anyone wants to order that stuff, you can still order that. And then there's patches and stickers in the Hebes We Trust if you want to buy those as well. Those we have here that goes to Danny, and then we'll get you one as well. So just a quick little housekeeping thing. Dave lived his life in many chapters, and most of you guys were part of those chapters. I was part of the last couple chapters. Unfortunately, there was more to come. But he did so many things. I was amazed. I've worked with hundreds of teachers. He worked for 27 years as a teacher. But the other things he did in life, I can't imagine doing as a teacher, and all the soccer teams he was involved with, all the travel, he started life early, dropping out of high school and playing soccer in Europe. He's been to 48 countries. I've never met someone I've been to 39 or 40. So we shared a love of travel. But it was amazing the things Dave hadn't done. If any of you follow him on Facebook, he had a whole list of things he hasn't done in life. Just mundane things. Dave has never had pudding. He had never been to the Caribbean, but had planned on sailing there. He didn't post this, but he had never had French onion soup. He didn't post he never had a Reuben, two of my favorite foods. Okay? He'd never been to a zoo. Okay, I'm not a huge proponent of zoos, but who has never been to a zoo? If you look at his Facebook, he's got a list about 10 more things. He'd never been on a scooter before. And some things I think he just relished in never doing. Okay, I've never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in my life. Okay, I was a picky eater as a kid, and now I just don't do it, so I can say I've never done it. Okay, so in that sense, Dave and I kind of share something. He was just amazing. Nate said it in his speech that was read. One of the most amazing things about Dave is you meet him, how are you doing? I'm happy. Like, that's just, who says that? Like, people are, and everyone just says, I'm good, how are you? Or good, how are you doing? Or whatever, but like that I'm happy just resonates with so many people, and it shows in this room, everyone that he brought together. Summer and a half ago, he sailed with Dermot all over Lake St. Clair on my boat, which I was happy to let him use. So made a lot of great memories there while I was away. And then Labor Day, the few weeks before we drove to Ontario together. We looked at probably 6 or 7 boats that we thought about buying together. They were all complete dogs. Don't ever buy a boat looking, when you look at pictures, realize they're nothing like that. And then this last boat we went to see just on a whim because it was 2 blocks from another boat we wanted to look at. We both fell in love with it on the ride home. Decided we wanted to buy it together, and kind of the rest was history from there. We went back to pick it up Labor Day weekend. Dermot graciously drove us all the way to Canada to sail it back, and we tried to sail it back over Labor Day weekend, but anyone who knows anything about sailing is you can't plan to be anywhere. There was winds out of the south at about 30 miles an hour coming up Huron, so we ended up leaving Tobermory, where we had to stay overnight because the winds were too high to sail. So we left at 2 in the morning and just did a straight shot all the way across to Rogers City. It was an amazing 13, 14 hours, no tack, which means we didn't have to turn, we had autopilot, so we literally just set the sails, sat there and just sailed for 14 hours with not a boat in sight, no land, nothing. It was amazing. The sunset was amazing, which Dave missed because he was down taking a nap. He said he was going to go down for 10 minutes just to, shut his eyes. 2 hours later, he came up. But it was a breathtaking experience. I'd actually, for all the sailing I've done, I'd never sailed without my boat. So it was, total bucket list experience. And then my father graciously picked us up in Rogers City, brought us back to Petoskey, and then we drove home the next day. And then over subsequent weekends, Dave would bring the boat back slowly down the coast of Michigan by himself, and would just have these amazing stories and meet people along the way. He could meet anybody, anywhere, and just make immediate friends with them. When he's in the Thumb, he would drive to somewhere, sail the boat down for like 4 or 5 hours, and then just go to a bar and talk to someone, get a ride back to his car. Like, hey, you drive me back, 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it is. And somehow he would just do it, and they'd be happy to do it. And, he'd be friends with these people. And just, that's how he was. He could make friends anywhere. I'm much more reserved than that. I just can't imagine, like, he just made so many friends everywhere he went. It was so great. I put all, I put the slideshow together for a lot of you guys that, contributed photos on the Google Drive. Thank you so much. If you want to see all of this, there's a link on his Facebook page, to Google Photos. I went through all of his photos and added any photos of people. I just searched for him and people he's with and things like that, and great photos too. So this is always going to remain open too, and I think there's a QR code somewhere for this. So if you want to see all these photos, there's even more than this as well. It's on Google Drive, which you can find on his Facebook too. So please contribute to this just to share those memories with him, with everybody here. There's so many great memories of Hebes. Last March, Dave bought tickets to Iceland. I was kind of, telling about traveling, this cheap airfare or whatever, so just randomly bought tickets to Iceland. So I decided to go with him. So just the two of us went to Iceland for, 5 days. He of course had been there before. Dave, being at 48 countries, but he'd only played soccer there and never really got to experience the country and go outside Reykjavik. So just had an amazing experience. There's a video on here of him. We were literally there for 2 hours. We wanted to see a hot spring, so we started hiking this place, and it looked like a cool place to hang out. And he put his foot down and literally stepped this deep into a hot spring, just covered in mud. It was just hysterical. Really got to know him on our road trips to Canada, looking at boats, on the boat trip back, our trip to Iceland. At one point on our first day, we were looking at waterfalls. I wanted to go look at another one, which turns out to be one of the best waterfalls in Iceland. He just stayed back and just wanted to talk to people. Just, people walking by. I came back, telling him about my amazing experience seeing this great waterfall. And he's talking about this, one guy he met, and he was kicking around a soccer ball with another kid. And he was completely content just doing that in Iceland while I'm, looking at these waterfalls and stuff. He also loved to take naps, which I didn't know about before I traveled with him. I want to do all these things in Iceland. He just wanted, nap for 5-10 minutes. So we might have missed a few things while he napped, but it was definitely worth it. So, I got to spend a lot of time with him at DCFC games. Spent some time with, my wife and son. They drove up north together this summer. He was just an amazing person. It's just, I'm jealous of all you guys that got to spend more time with him than I did. But it was a great chapter while we had it. One thing this reminds me of is if you've ever seen the movie Big Fish. The movie's about 20 years old. I'm going to spoil the ending, but if you haven't seen it yet, you get the ending spoiled. It's about a guy that kind of lives a larger than life, and it's told by his son. He was a traveling salesman and just told these outlandish stories that were too big to be true. And that's how I felt about Dave's life. Like, there's no way this guy did all of these things. There's no way he was the first American to score a goal in Poland. He played in the USSR before it was Russia. Had so many things, but was also a teacher and kind of had a grounded life, but also had this amazing kind of second life as well. You're talking about, when he was in Toledo, like he was telling me, not too long ago, he'd teach all day and then he'd go coach the soccer team professionally and things like that. Like, who does that? Even a few months ago, he still had 3 jobs. Worked at Churchill and worked for National English Honor Society. I don't know where he found the time or energy to do it, but it was his passion and he did it. But the movie Big Fish, it ends with the main character's funeral, who told all these great stories. And once again, they seemed outlandish, and there were Siamese twins and midgets and giants and all these great things, which, didn't seem real. But then at his funeral, everyone comes together, and all of a sudden, the people showing up, you start seeing all those characters throughout his life. And that's kind of how I feel about today. Just so many different facets of his life. I've never met someone who had so many different friend groups and things like that. We were at a Red Wings game last season, and he literally ran into like 7 or 8 people he knew when we were just walking around, in between the periods and stuff like that. We joked about it. But that's just kind of everyone who he ever met, he left an impression on, and they remembered him for that. So it was really special. I want to finish the quote from Big Fish. The movie ends with this quote. If I can get through it, it's not long, but the man tells the stories so many times that he becomes the stories. They live on after him, and in that way, he becomes immortal. That's how I feel about Dave. So, I don't have a drink, but quick toast. Dave also like to brag that he know how to give toast in like 13 languages. So Slante, Nostrovia, Prost, whatever, whatever you feel like. Thanks, heaps. And lastly, Sister Beth.
Mike just said good luck to me. I know I'll do okay up here. I'm gonna start. I really want to thank everyone for showing up today. This is a way for us to heal, and I know it's probably a way for you to heal, to be in this environment, to be with all of these people that were touched and affected by my brother. And it has been completely overwhelming and amazing from the start. Nobody ever wants to go through this, yet we're all gonna go through it, right? But the people that have reached out to me, the people that have showed up, the people that I never heard about or never knew about, that are here, that are memorializing my brother, deeply affects me, and it really helps me heal. To know all of the lives that he touched. And some of you may be it may be a school class, it may be seasons and seasons of soccer, maybe you met him at a bar, I don't know, but it's just amazing. And to see this, it's not it is overwhelming in a good way. I don't know if I know how to use this. Going in and out, I got it, am I good? Okay, thank you. So first I want to start with thanking everyone for coming, but we wouldn't be here today with all of this amazing things without some key people who stepped up from the get-go the minute things started to come apart here. And this is back in September when he was at school. The kids that jumped up and helped him immediately, the staff that jumped in and saved his life, his friends who showed up at the hospital. I had gotten a call at my house, and Hurricane Helene had just gone through. I live in South Carolina. I was out of power, and the assistant principal told me I needed to get to the hospital right away. And I couldn't, so I reached out to his friends that I know, Danny and Nate and Mike were already there. And they were by his side. And it was so comforting to me to know, because my mom wasn't available to be there with him, that he had these key people in his corner making sure that he was okay. They were talking with the doctors, they were taking care of everything. And I didn't get to come in until Friday. And by then he had been released, and we hung out for the first time in his classroom on that Sunday. So I got to see classroom 330, and he struggled a little bit to walk because he had just had that terrific event. And I got to sit in his classroom for about an hour and a half, and I heard all kinds of stories. And they're coming back today, as each one of you is coming up to me and telling me something. I'm like, yeah, he just told me this. He just, he was just explaining this. So it's really, really just an amazing experience to have this becoming full circle, unfortunately, under these circumstances. But I really want to thank also, we have Mike Berschbeck, who you heard from, sailing, kind of get my brother onto the other side of his life, out of the soccer life, and then Nate and Danny, Carrie, all of these people here. I mean, there's so many people, every person in this room is instrumental. But these people came up, they helped me, they helped my family, they helped Dave. We wouldn't be sitting in this hall if Danny wouldn't have said, I got it, I got the pizzas, I got the hall, he just whipped it up, and in 24 hours, I was, on a whirlwind. He had handled them, and it was done. And so thank you, Danny, that's amazing, and I appreciate it. Nate and Dermot said, Beth, you come stay. You can stay with me. He gave me the key to the house. He's like, you come, you do whatever you need to do. I'm here for you, whatever you need. That's my brother's roommate. And Nate, they came and cleaned my brother's room so I could sleep in it. I apparently really needed it, and so I do thank them for that. But it's just amazing. Carrie's been there, helping me with the medical side of things, from Boston all the way. I just give her a call or whatever, and she would help me through that. And I don't know where I would be if these people didn't step forward. Don't really know me. They know me through my brother, but they don't really know me. And they just did it. And that's the kind of friendships that he had. And it's an amazing thing to see and be able to experience. I also want to say thank you to Colleen Sados. She stepped in and helped. And then his friends at CHS. One of the things that Dave and I talked about in the hospital at MUSC was that he didn't have a retirement party. And broke my heart a little bit. We had that conversation because I knew he really wanted to have one. And I said, well, you know, I talked to Tara about it and we're supposed to throw you one. And I said, let's do it, you know? And then he came back, he must have been on his phone texting, and he said, oh, they're just gonna have it in January. I said, oh, good, do I get an invite? And he goes, we'll see about that. So, when things happened and I met Andrew, I mentioned that to him and he said, done. Done. And it was done. And him and Wendy came together with the other staff. And we had a beautiful celebration of career yesterday at Churchill in the library. And Dave would send me pictures of the librarian, Nick Radu, every time they had prom. Dave and Nick would be sitting next to each other. Nick used to work for me. I had a business way back in another life. But it was always heartwarming for him to send those pictures and just do those little touches and drips. And so it was great to be in that environment and celebrate his career and have the students come up and tell me how they touched his life. And the teachers that were sharing. One teacher was sharing how Dave, she had the classroom in the summer and she had the window open. And she's like, Dave would just go on these random trips. And here he is coming through the window into my classroom while I'm trying to do, you know, the study. And instead of just walking through the classroom and leaving, he stops and he talks to the kids and he makes a big deal about it. And I just thought, I would never know that unless someone shared that. And so it was just a beautiful thing to see. Not only did his friends step forward, there were so many people that stepped forward from different organizations that he was involved with that wanted to honor his legacy. And that, again, is just an amazing thing. And I want to take just a moment to thank those organizations and the other people that came forward through those organizations to help out in some way with his passing and all of the things that take place after that. So Christopher Lockwood from NEHS, which is the National English Honor Society, shortly after he passed, wrote me and said that they wanted to honor Dave with a scholarship, with an award, an annual award. And Dave, you know, he really planned to retire and finish his book about how he had a heart transplant. That was the plan, to go down to the Bahamas and ride on a boat. And so they've created an award in his name that they'll honor every year. And it's a $1,500 award that will go to a student. They submit an application, I believe. And then that $1,500, they can go and travel. And then they want them to write a summary of what their travel was about. So I just thought that was just an awesome way to honor his legacy and what he did for people. Yes. Thank you. Then I had Mike from AFC Ann Arbor reach out to me, and he would like to create a scholarship where every year there's a coaching scholarship to bring in coaches into the game. Because as you know, if you don't have players, if you don't have coaches and you don't have officials, you don't have players, you don't have a game. So it's a lot, but David was the first coach at AFC Ann Arbor. He created the entire program with the coaching staff there that is still flourishing, and Mike really wanted to honor that. He recently, did you get those pictures in of him in Poland? Oh. He just went to Poland. He has a connection there, and he took the In Hebes We Trust patch and a shirt, and he went to the original field that David played on I don't know what year it was, in the nineties maybe, and what, 95, and did a tribute to Dave there, so really cool. But that's gonna be a $2,400 scholarship. I said that they'll, I think he said that they'll award annually to someone who can come into the coaching at, and help the programs flourish. So on that, we talked about having a celebratory game in the early spring to honor that award and kind of kick off. So any of you people, I don't know if anyone here likes to play soccer, but if you stay connected to Dave's Facebook, because we'll continue to use that as a vehicle for getting information out, you're welcome to come join us at that game. And it'll be sometime in May. And you can just come and cheers with us and be a fan, or you can come and hopefully we'll get you on the field and have fun with it. Schoolcraft College has agreed to, in 2025, make a mention of Dave on their kits. So another place that he impacted the program there. I was lucky enough, he called me one day, I was living up north in Traverse City. He goes, you gotta come home, you gotta play soccer at Schoolcraft. And I'm like, well, I'm older than all those people, and I don't know, I wanna do that. And he goes, no, just come home. So I came home and I played soccer. We came home from a game, he had a match and I had a match. And we both had come home, you'll see the picture up here, and my dad was ecstatic. He goes, get in the backyard, I'm taking a picture, you guys, it's the back of the garage. And so that's what that picture is about. And Dave always invited me to his, when he was away at school, to different things. And it just meant so much to me to get to meet so many of his friends and spend time with them. I don't remember much of it, but I did enjoy it, I know. Detroit City Football Club West, Danny is the director of that, and they have contributed and helped immensely, not only through Danny, but through some other funding. And so I just want to make a mention to Detroit City, one of my favorite local teams. So I'm pretty sure I get Dave's season tickets, I heard maybe. They just transfer over. Cause I'll come up for that. I won't come up for much, but I'll come up for that. Soccer World amazingly put together this apparel. They're gonna keep the store open, but they donated the proceeds back and to pay for the hall, to pay for the pizzas. And so they very eagerly were willing to help us out on that side. So we want to thank Soccer World for being there for us. Primo's Pizza was one of Dave's favorites. It's also one of mine. Been around Livonia for a long, long time. But they gave us a great deal on the pizza. So please don't let it go to waste. Take some pizza home or eat here. But we want to thank Primo's for contributing to this evening. And then Monahan's. When I told you Danny just picked up the phone and 5 minutes later we had a haul, a lot of things were sorted out at that point. And I had never been to Monahan's. I knew it was here, but I just had never been here. And so this is a great venue. I think it gave us a lot of space to do what we needed to do to celebrate the life of my brother. So I'm gonna, did I cover everything? I think we're good. I want to talk a little bit about greatness, because I think, I had a lot of things about when Dave and I were kids and, just things that we went through as kids. And I'm like, nobody wants to hear that. And I'm like, what is it about my brother? Like, I always wanted to be close to him. I always wanted to be near him. He always seemed to be doing something exciting. And he always seemed to be having these great things going on. And even as when we were young, I wanted to be close to him. And what came to me was greatness. Like, he wanted to be around greatness and he wanted to be greatness. And that's what you see when you go to a game and you're watching professionals, right? Like, you're seeing the best of the best on the field. And I think he aspired to be there. I think he made it there many times. And I think that's what he did for all of us. He put that little seed of greatness in us. And I believe that is going to be his legacy, is the cornerstone of his legacy is going to be that greatness And it's gonna live on through these scholarships, through these awards, in all of our hearts, in all of our minds. And every time you think of him, or you see a sailboat, or you see a soccer game, I hope you think of him and you know that he's with you and he's in your heart and he's thinking about you and he's looking down over all of us and he's appreciating that we're here today for him. So cheers to Hebes. Thank you, everyone. There's plenty of alcohol and pizza. And I would love to talk to whoever's sticking around, so please mingle and stay.
Awesome. Hey, on behalf of Beth and everybody, thanks for being here today. Enjoy the rest of the time together. And thanks again for celebrating Dave.